This is the story of America. At first, it might seem to start in 1492 or 1776, but in truth, it goes back thousands of years. Long before any European ships arrived, this land was home to thriving peoples and civilizations. Archaeologists have identified nearly 1 million sites across North America, spanning some 14,000 years. From the rainforests of the Pacific Northwest to the woodlands of the East, indigenous communities hunted, farmed, and traded for millennia. By around 1000 CE, the Mississippian culture in the Midwest built great cities with large earthen mounds and tens of thousands of people. Its largest city was Cahokia, in present-day Illinois, whose central mound soared to the size of a modern skyscraper. In the southwest, the Puebloans of Chaco Canyon, between 900 and 1150 CE, erected massive multi-story stone complexes, the largest structures in North America until the 19th century. These sophisticated societies developed complex calendars, astronomy, art, and long-distance trade networks. Yet within only a few generations after European contact, diseases such as smallpox devastated native populations, leaving only a fraction of those peoples by the early 1600s. Everything changed in the late 15th century. On October 12, 1492, Italian explorer Christopher Columbus landed in the Caribbean under the Spanish flag, connecting the Old World and the New. Over the next century, European powers explored and claimed American lands. Spain colonized Florida, the Southwest, and Mexico. France established settlements in Canada and along the Mississippi River. The English built colonies along the Atlantic coast. In 1607, 104 English men and boys established Jamestown, Virginia, the first permanent English settlement in North America. More colonists followed. In 1620, pilgrims aboard the Mayflower founded Plymouth in New England, while other English settlements spread south toward the Carolinas and Georgia. Each colonial region developed its own character. New England town life, southern plantations, and frontier backcountry, but all would soon chafe under British rule. Colonial life was shaped by labor systems, trade, and local governance, but always under the shadow of empire. After costly global wars, Britain began taxing the colonies heavily. Colonists objected not simply to taxes, but to political power and identity. No taxation without representation became a rallying cry. Tensions escalated into armed conflict in April 1775 at Lexington and Concord. Within a year, delegates from the 13 colonies met in Philadelphia. On July 4, 1776, they approved the Declaration of Independence, proclaiming that all men are created equal and that the colonies were free states. The Revolutionary War raged for years. In 1781, British General Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia. The conflict formally ended in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris, in which Britain recognized American independence. A new nation had been born. The 1780s became a time of nation building. The founders drafted a constitution in 1787 to replace the weak Articles of Confederation. In 1788, after New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify it, the Constitution took effect. George Washington became the first president, and the new federal system began uniting the states. Even as the government formed, Americans pressed westward. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, paying France $15 million for vast lands west of the Mississippi River. The deal nearly doubled the size of the country. Explorers Lewis and Clark crossed the continent, mapping rivers and mountains on their journey to the Pacific. Over the following decades, more territory was added, including Florida, Texas, and lands across the Midwest and Great Plains. By the 1840s, the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that the United States was destined to span the continent, drove settlers westward. Yet expansion came at a heavy cost, intensifying debates over slavery. In 1848, gold was discovered in California, triggering a massive rush of prospectors. California became a state by 1850. Around the same time, the United States fought Mexico, and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo transferred vast territories to American control. The expansion of new lands reignited bitter conflict between North and South over slavery. The crisis reached a breaking point in 1860 when Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the expansion of slavery, was elected president. 11 southern states seceded to form the Confederate States of America. On April 12, 1861, war erupted when Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter. 4 years of devastating conflict followed. In April 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered. Slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment, but the struggle for equality was far from over. After the Civil War, the United States entered the Reconstruction era. Constitutional amendments promised equal protection and voting rights for African Americans. However, as federal oversight faded, southern states imposed Jim Crow laws enforcing segregation and discrimination. Meanwhile, the nation industrialized rapidly. Railroads connected the country, cities exploded in size, and millions of immigrants arrived seeking opportunity. Steel mills, oil fields, and factories transformed the United States into the world's leading industrial power. In 1914, World War I erupted in Europe. The United States initially remained neutral, but in 1917, it declared war on Germany after repeated attacks on American shipping. American troops helped bring the war to an end in 1918. The victory elevated America's global status, though the nation soon retreated into isolation. The 1920 1920s brought prosperity, cultural change, and women's suffrage. But unchecked speculation led to disaster. In October 1929, the stock market crashed, triggering the Great Depression. Millions lost jobs, homes, and savings. President Franklin D. Roosevelt responded with the New Deal, launching programs that reshaped the role of government in American life. World War II began in 1939. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the United States entered the war. American industry and manpower proved decisive. By 1945, Germany and Japan had surrendered. The war claimed over 400,000 American lives, but left the United States as a global superpower. The United Nations was formed, and America helped rebuild Europe through the Marshall Plan. Almost immediately, rivalry with the Soviet Union emerged. The Cold War divided the world into opposing ideological camps. Nuclear tension, proxy wars, and the space race defined the era. In 1969, American astronauts landed on the moon. At home, the civil rights movement challenged segregation and discrimination. Landmark laws transformed American society, though the struggle for equality continued. The late 20th century saw rapid technological change, the rise of computers and the internet, and political upheaval, including the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, leaving the United States as the world's sole superpower. The 21st century began with the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. The United States launched wars abroad and faced new debates at home over security and freedom. In 2008, Barack Obama became the nation's first African-American president. In 2020, a global pandemic disrupted daily life and protests demanded racial justice. Looking across this long arc of history, America's story is one of ambition and contradiction, innovation and injustice, struggle and renewal. From ancient civilizations to modern cities, each generation has shaped the nation's identity. Understanding this past gives meaning to the present. The land still remembers, and the future waits for the next chapter to be written.